The night my daughter closed her door on me, my 7-year-old grandson was holding a pillow in one hand and a plastic grocery bag in the other. Rain ran off the porch roof in silver ropes. Behind me, my older grandson, Evan, stood beside 3 duffel bags and tried to look 13 instead of frightened. Noah pressed close enough to my coat that I could feel him trembling. Inside the house, warm lights filled across polished floors. I could smell roasted chicken. I could hear my granddaughter Lily laughing somewhere upstairs. There were 5 bedrooms in that house. Melissa told me there was no room. My son-in-law, Grant Holloway, did not bother lowering his voice. "Walter, this cannot become an open-ended arrangement," he said. "You have a habit of turning emergencies into obligations." I looked at him through the narrow space between the door and the frame. 48 hours earlier, city inspectors had condemned the apartment building where I lived with my grandsons. We had been allowed back inside for 20 minutes to collect clothes, medication, school books, and the framed photograph of my dead daughter Rachel that Noah kept beside his bed. I had not asked Melissa for money. I had not asked her to solve our lives. I had asked whether her father and her 2 orphan nephews could sleep in her finished basement for 2 weeks. Melissa folded her arms. "Dad, you should have had an emergency plan." Evan heard her. That mattered more than anything she said to me. He looked down at his shoes because children believe adults cannot see humiliation if they hide their faces. I kept my voice steady. The building was declared unsafe. People were taken out with police at the doors. What kind of plan was I supposed to have? Grant sighed, as though my homelessness had interrupted a meeting. A responsible one. Noah looked past him into the hallway. "Is Lily home?" Melissa's expression changed for half a second. She loved the boys in the distant, decorative way some people love family photographs. She remembered birthdays. She bought expensive gifts. She did not want their fear inside her house. "Lily has school tomorrow," she said. "This would be disruptive." Noah nodded as if that answer made sense. It did not. Grant began closing the door. I placed one hand against it. Not hard. Just enough to stop him. "You knew our building was having problems," I said. His eyes sharpened. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You own a construction company. I asked you 3 months ago to look at the cracks in the stairwell. And I told you to contact the landlord. The landlord said your firm had renovated the building." For the first time, Grant looked past me at the boys. Then he smiled. "You are tired, Walter. Go to a hotel." "With what money?" Melissa whispered, "Dad, please do not make a scene." I looked at my daughter. She was 40 years old. When she was 9, she broke her arm falling from a tree. I carried her 6 blocks because the ambulance went to the wrong street. When she was 17, I worked nights cleaning classrooms and weekends repairing boilers so she could attend a college I had never seen until graduation day. Now she stood in a house with empty rooms and told me not to make a scene on the porch. I removed my hand from the door. "All right," I said. Grant relaxed. Melissa gave me a small, grateful smile, as if I had finally behaved properly. I picked up the nearest duffel bag. Then I looked at Evan and Noah. "My grandsons will never have to beg anyone for a room again." Grant laughed once. It was not a loud laugh. It was worse than that. It was the quiet sound a person makes when he thinks another person has promised something impossible. The door closed. Noah stared at it. "Grandpa," he asked, "did we do something bad?" I bent down until we were eye to eye. "No." "Then why can't we stay?" Because your aunt is ashamed of need. Because her husband values people according to what they can do for him. Because I raised a daughter who learned to call comfort a boundary when someone else was cold. Those were adult answers. Noah needed a child's truth. Sometimes people close the wrong door, I said. That does not mean there is something wrong with the person outside. He accepted that because he trusted me. I did not know whether I trusted myself. That first night, we slept at the Fairway Motor Lodge beside the interstate. The room had 2 beds, 1 chair, a microwave that hummed even when it was turned off, and curtains that smelled faintly of cigarettes despite the no smoking sign. Noah thought the ice machine was exciting. Evan did not speak until after his brother fell asleep. Then he sat at the end of the second bed and said, "And Melissa lied. I was taking my blood pressure tablets with water from a paper cup." "About what?" "She said there was no room. There are 2 empty bedrooms, the basement, and Dad's old office." Rachel's husband had died before Noah was born. The boys called no other man Dad. Evan meant the room Grant had once offered to turn into a gaming room for him. "I know," I said. "She just did not want us." Children often say the sentence adults spend years avoiding. I sat beside him. "She made a bad choice. She made it in front of us." "Yes. I hate her." "You are allowed to be angry." "Do you hate her?" I looked at the rain sliding down the window. "No." "Why not?" "Because hate is expensive, and we are already paying for a motel." He almost smiled. Then his face tightened again. "Are we going to be okay?" I wanted to promise him certainty. Instead, I told him what I had learned during 38 years as a public school custodian. "Tomorrow morning, we make a list." "A list of what?" "What we have. What we need. What can wait. What cannot." That is not an answer. It is the beginning of one. At 6 the next morning, I wrote 4 headings on the back of a motel receipt. Money. Work. Housing. School. I had $1,162 in savings. My pension covered our ordinary rent and groceries but not weeks in a motel. I worked 3 afternoons a week doing maintenance at a church. Evan's school was 7 miles away. Noah's elementary school was 9. My truck needed brakes before winter. Under housing, I wrote, "Call everyone." I called the county emergency line. I called 3 shelters. I called 2 churches, the Veterans Office even though I had never served, and the Senior Resource Center. The family shelters were full. The emergency motel program had a waiting list. One church offered us 2 nights in its fellowship hall, but children could not remain during daytime programs. At 10:30, I called Clara Jensen. Clara had been a 7th grader at Lincoln Middle School when I worked there. She used to arrive before the doors opened and sit on the loading dock because her mother's boyfriend did not allow her in the apartment after he left for work. I never asked questions she could not answer. I gave her a key to the boiler room hallway so she could wait somewhere warm. I kept peanut butter crackers in my cart. Once, when the strap broke on her backpack, I repaired it with nylon webbing and rivets from the maintenance shop. 22 years later, Clara ran a housing nonprofit called Second Landing. I had seen her name in the newspaper but had not spoken to her since she invited me to her college graduation. She answered with, "Mr. Hayes?" "Walter now." "You will always be Mr. Hayes." "I need advice." Her tone changed. "Where are you?" I told her. She arrived at the motel 40 minutes later wearing work boots, a green raincoat, and the expression of someone already angry on my behalf. She did not hug me immediately. I appreciated that. Pity can feel like another person taking inventory of your weakness. She sat at the small table and listened. When I finished, she asked, "How long can you afford this room?" 5 days if we eat carefully. Can the boys stay in their schools? For now. Do you have legal guardianship? Permanent guardianship since Rachel died. She nodded. Then she looked around the room. I do not have an apartment available. I was not asking you to. But I may have a building. Second Landing had inherited a 3-story brick boarding house from a retired nurse named Agnes Bell. The property had 12 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a large kitchen, and enough violations to make the city inspector use language Clara would not repeat in front of children. The nonprofit intended to turn it into transitional housing for grandparents raising grandchildren. Funding had fallen through. The building had been empty for 8 years. Clara slid photographs across the table. The roof sagged near the rear chimney. Plaster hung from ceilings. Pipes had burst during winter and stained the walls. One staircase leaned enough to be visible in the photograph. It needs everything, she said. I studied each image. How sound is the foundation? According to an engineer, better than it looks. Electrical? Ancient. Plumbing? Hostile. Boiler? Dead. She leaned forward. There is a caretaker's apartment behind the old kitchen. It has a separate entrance. If we make the unit safe first, you and the boys could live there while you supervise repairs. I cannot afford rent and renovation. I am not asking for both. We can pay you part-time wages. The apartment would be part of the position. Who is doing the work? That is the problem. I looked again at the sagging porch, broken windows, and water-damaged rooms. My hands had become stiff with age. My niece complained on stairs. I could no longer carry a cast-iron radiator alone. But I knew how buildings failed. More importantly, I knew how they could be persuaded to stand again. When can I see it? Clara smiled. Now. Agnes Bell House stood on Monroe Street behind an abandoned textile mill. The neighborhood had once been full of factory families. Now half the storefronts were empty, but children still rode bicycles between parked cars, and someone had planted marigolds around a fire hydrant. The boarding house was ugly in an honest way. Nothing had been painted over to hide the damage. Nothing pretended to be safe. I preferred it immediately. Clara unlocked the front door. Dust moved through shafts of gray light. Noah covered his nose. It smells like a basement. It smells like 20 basements, Evan said. The main hallway stretched past a parlor, dining room, and office. A staircase rose beneath a stained glass window missing 3 blue pieces. I tapped the newel post. Solid oak. The plaster was ruined, but the framing beneath it looked dry. In the rear, the caretaker's apartment had 1 bedroom, a narrow sitting room, and a small kitchen with metal cabinets. The ceiling was intact. The windows closed. The bathroom needed a new toilet and most of its floor. Noah opened a closet. This can be my room. It is 3 feet wide, Evan said. I am little. I looked at Clara. How soon can the electricity be isolated to this unit? We have an electrician who volunteers on Saturdays. The water? Main line works. Interior lines are another story. Heat? Space heaters until we replace the boiler. I walked to the window. Across the yard stood a carriage house with one collapsed corner. Beyond it, the old mill chimney rose above the rooftops. A motel was temporary because someone else could change the price, the rules, or the lock. This place was temporary too. But it offered work. Work is a kind of dignity fear cannot easily take. "We will do it," I said. Evan stared at me. "Live here?" "Not tonight. It is falling apart." "So are we," I said. "That does not mean we are finished." Clara gave us 14 days in a small family shelter apartment while volunteers made the caretaker unit habitable. I spent those 2 weeks cleaning, measuring, calling former coworkers, and learning how much pride a person can swallow when the answer protects children. Mr. Singh, a retired electrician from Lincoln Middle School, replaced the apartment panel at cost. Denise Coleman, who once ran the school cafeteria, organized a donation drive for beds and kitchen supplies. 2 former students arrived with a pickup truck full of drywall. A plumber named Gus recognized me from the year I found his son hiding in a restroom after being bullied. He repaired the broken bathroom floor and refused payment. Every person said some version of the same thing. "You helped somebody I loved." I had never kept a record. Apparently, they had. On the 14th evening, we moved into the caretaker's apartment. Noah taped a paper sign to the bedroom door. "The Hayes Boys' Room." Evan crossed out boys and wrote "Command Center." I slept on a pull-out couch in the sitting room. Rain struck the old windows that night. The building creaked around us. But no one could tell us there was no room. 3 weeks later, while removing a wall in the second-floor bathroom, I found the first piece of evidence that connected Grand Holloway to the building that had put us on the street. It was not hidden in a safe. It was printed on the back of a discarded inspection photograph. "Holloway Urban Renewal. Project 14B. The address beneath it was our condemned apartment building. I carried the photograph downstairs and laid it beneath the lamp in Clara's office. The image showed a section of exposed wall from our old apartment building. New electrical cables ran beside a steel support plate. Someone had marked the photograph "Approved" in red ink. Clara turned it over twice. "Why would this be here?" Agnes Bell House was used as a storage site by the city's neighborhood redevelopment program. They may have sent project records here before the non-profit inherited it. "Grant's company worked on your building?" "That is what the landlord told me." I pointed to the cables. "Those are the wrong gauge for the load. The support plate is decorative. It is not carrying anything." Clara studied my face. "You can tell from one picture?" "I can tell someone wanted the picture to look like a repair." We searched the room where I had found it. Behind a broken filing cabinet were 6 water-damaged boxes labeled "Municipal Rehabilitation, 2019 to 2022. Most contained ordinary invoices, meeting notes, and copies of tenant notices. But one box held records for Project 14B. The city had awarded Holloway Urban Renewal $2.4 million to upgrade our apartment building after a federal housing safety grant. According to the paperwork, the company had replaced the electrical panels, reinforced the stairwells, repaired the roof, installed smoke barriers, and notified every tenant about temporary relocation during the work. I had lived there through the entire project. No tenant had been relocated. The stairwell cracks had been painted. The electrical panels had received new labels over old metal. The roof leaked every spring. At the bottom of a tenant notification affidavit was Melissa's signature. I sat down. Clara remained standing. "Could someone have copied it?" I taught her to write her name. The M leaned backward. The double S joined at the bottom. Melissa had signed birthday cards, college applications, and the consent form authorizing me to collect Lily from school. The signature was hers. The affidavit stated that all 36 households had received safety notices and alternative housing during hazardous work. No such notices existed. No alternative housing had been offered. Clara quietly closed the office door. "Walter, this could be a criminal matter. It could also be a copied signature and bad record keeping." "You do not believe that?" "I believe we need more than one box." She called Maya Patel, a city housing investigator who had recently joined Second Landing's advisory board. Maya arrived that afternoon with a scanner, evidence sleeves, and the careful manner of someone who had learned that excitement can contaminate facts. She did not accuse Grant. She did not promise justice. She photographed where each box had been located, logged every document, and asked me to describe the renovations without showing me the invoices first. "How many days was the building empty during the electrical work?" "None." "Did contractors enter your apartment?" "Twice. One man tested outlets. Another replaced the cover on the breaker panel." "Were walls opened?" "No." "Did you receive a relocation payment?" "No." "Did you sign a notice refusing relocation?" "No." Maya placed a document in front of me. It claimed I had declined temporary housing because I wished to remain near my church. My name appeared at the bottom. The signature was not mine. It was a good imitation. Someone had even included the small break between the H and the A that appeared when arthritis stiffened my hand. A person had studied my writing. I remembered Grant sitting at our kitchen table the previous Thanksgiving, helping Noah with a puzzle while paperwork for my pension review lay beside him. I also remembered Melissa bringing me a birthday card and insisting I sign a receipt for a new television she said she had purchased with a warranty in my name. The television had never arrived. Maya asked, "Who had access to samples of your signature?" "My daughter. My son-in-law. The landlord. The school district. Half the world, if we are being honest." "Did Grant know you lived in Project 14B when his company accepted the contract?" "Yes." "Did he ever discuss the renovation with you?" "Once. He said the city was wasting money on people who would complain no matter what they received." Clara cursed under her breath. Maya kept writing. "What happened immediately before the building was condemned?" "A tenant smelled burning plastic. Firefighters opened a wall and found overheated wiring. Inspectors discovered cracked beams and missing fire barriers." "Did the owner receive advance notice of the inspection?" "I do not know." Maya looked at the boxes. "I can find out." She took copies, not originals. The records technically belonged to Second Landing until the city determined whether they had been transferred lawfully. She instructed us not to discuss the discovery. That instruction lasted 4 days. On Friday morning, Grant entered Agnes Bell House without knocking. He wore a camel-colored coat and shoes too clean for Monroe Street. Behind him stood a young man carrying a leather folder. I was installing handrails in the first-floor hallway. Grant looked at the volunteers, the stacked lumber, and the fresh electrical conduit. "This is ambitious," he said. I continued tightening the bracket. "You found the address?" "Melissa is concerned. She knows how to use a telephone. She has called." I had not answered. Grant gestured to the man behind him. "This is Kevin Doyle, our corporate counsel." Kevin gave me a professional smile. "We understand materials belonging to Holloway Urban Renewal may have been discovered on the property." I stopped working. "Which materials?" Grant's eyes narrowed. "Old project documents. There are thousands of pages in this building. Records concerning Project 14B. He knew the project number. I looked at Kevin. "Did you come with a court order?" "No," he said. "We hope to resolve this cooperatively." "Then cooperate with the front door." Grant stepped closer. "Walter, you are upset because Melissa would not let you move into our home. I understand that. But using private company records to retaliate would be a serious mistake." A volunteer carrying trim board slowed to listen. I lowered my voice. "You condemned 36 families to live behind fake repairs. That is an allegation you are not qualified to make. I know the difference between a support and a decoration. You are a janitor. Custodian." His smile returned. "Exactly." He wanted the word to reduce me. It did not. I had cleaned blood from bathroom floors, repaired classroom heat before children arrived, found drugs in ceiling tiles, stopped flooding toilets, unlocked doors for frightened parents, and noticed bruises teachers were too busy to see. Custodians survive by understanding what people try to hide in buildings. "I am not giving you anything," I said. Grant's face hardened. Kevin intervened. "Any documents bearing our client's proprietary information must be preserved. Destruction or public distribution could expose the nonprofit to liability." "Nothing has been destroyed." Grant looked past me toward Clara's office. "Where are they?" Clara appeared at the top of the stairs. "With the appropriate people." That was not the answer he expected. He asked, "What people?" "The kind who issue subpoenas instead of business cards." For the first time, Grant's confidence cracked. Only slightly. But I saw it. He pointed at me. "This project will never open. The neighborhood is not zoned for what you are planning. The fire department will reject the occupancy. Your donors will disappear when they understand the liability." Clara came down the stairs. "Are you threatening a housing charity in front of 12 witnesses?" "I am explaining reality." "No," I said. "You are trying to close another door before someone sees what is behind it." Grant moved close enough that I smelled his aftershave. "Your daughter was right. You turn every hardship into a performance about your virtue." He left before I could answer. Kevin followed. The young lawyer looked embarrassed. That told me he had not known everything. 2 hours later, the city building department received an anonymous complaint accusing Second Landing of unlicensed electrical work, unsafe occupancy, and misuse of charitable funds. Inspectors arrived before lunch. The complaint was partly false and partly clever. We had permits. Our electrician was licensed. No residents occupied the main building. But one donated load of fire-rated drywall had arrived without manufacturer documentation. A temporary stair rail was 2 inches below code. The caretaker apartment's second exit had been blocked by stored tools. The inspector issued a stop work order until the violations were corrected. Clara read the notice in silence. Volunteers began packing their equipment. Noah came home from school and found yellow tape across the main staircase. Are they making us leave again? No, I said. Are you sure? I looked at the caretaker apartment. The stop work order did not condemn it. But to a 7-year-old, yellow tape is yellow tape. I am sure. He did not believe me until bedtime. That evening, Evan sat at the kitchen table with his school laptop. I found Grant's company portal. I was making soup from donated vegetables. You found the website? No. The employee login. I put down the knife. How? His email was in one of the documents. I guess the password reset questions. My stomach tightened. Did you enter the account? Not yet. Close it. But there could be evidence. Close it. He threw us out. He stole money. He could have killed people. And you are 13. That does not mean I am stupid. No. It means adults who commit crimes would be happy to blame a child for touching their files. I can download everything. You can also damage an investigation and commit a crime yourself. His chair scraped backward. So we just wait while he shuts this place down? We fix the violations. That is your answer to everything. Often because broken things need fixing. He deserves to lose his house. The sentence came quickly. Too quickly. I turned off the burner. Look at me. He did not. Evan. He raised his eyes. You want him to stand outside with nowhere to go because that is where he put us. Yes. At least you are honest. You said I was allowed to be angry. You are. Anger is information. It tells you something was wrong. It does not get to choose what you become next. That sounds like something people say when they are too scared to fight. I sat across from him. Do you think I am scared? Yes. He was right. I feared losing the apartment. I feared Grant had enough influence to bury the records. I feared Melissa had knowingly helped him. I feared Evan would learn that power belonged to people willing to ignore rules. I am terrified, I said. That is why we need a plan better than revenge. He looked at the login screen. Then he closed it. The following week, we corrected every violation. Mr. Singh found the drywall documentation. Gus rebuilt the stair rail. I cleared the apartment exit and created a daily safety checklist. The inspector returned and lifted the order. Something else happened during those 7 days. Word spread. A local reporter wrote that a housing nonprofit renovating a home for grandparents had been delayed by an anonymous complaint hours after discovering records connected to a condemned apartment project. The article did not name Grant. It did not need to. Former tenants recognized Project 14B. They began calling Second Landing. A mother named Tasha Reed brought photographs of water pouring through her ceiling 2 months after the roof had supposedly been replaced. An elderly man named Curtis Bell produced a relocation form bearing a signature he could not write because a stroke had paralyzed his right hand. A former maintenance worker arrived with a flash drive. His name was Owen Price. Grant's site manager had ordered him to photograph one properly repaired apartment from different angles and label the images as separate units. Owen had objected. He was fired. "Why did you keep the files?" Maya asked. "Because I knew someday he would say I was lying." Owen's flash drive contained dates, emails, photographs, and a voice message from Grant. In the recording, Grant said, "The city pays for compliance, not craftsmanship. Give them a compliant picture." It was not enough to prove the whole scheme. It was enough to make the city's fraud office open a formal investigation. Grant responded by going on television. He stood outside his headquarters beside Melissa. "My daughter wore a pale blue coat," in the expression she used at funerals. Grant called the allegations a campaign of retaliation led by a disgruntled relative. Melissa said, "My father is grieving, under financial stress, and being influenced by people who do not understand our family." Noah watched the clip from the doorway. "Why did Aunt Melissa say you do not understand?" "She said other people do not understand." "She looked at the camera when she said family." I turned off the television. Evan asked, "Are you still saying she made one bad choice?" "No." That answer silenced the room. The next morning, Melissa came to see me alone. She stood in the same front hall where Grant had threatened us. The renovation had reached the point where Agnes Bell House looked possible. Fresh plaster covered the walls. The stained glass window had 3 new blue pieces. Noah's painted signs marked future bedrooms with names like Safe Harbor, New Start, and Dragon Room. Melissa looked around. "You did all this?" "Many people did." "I called you 14 times. "I know." "You could have answered. You could have opened your door." Her mouth tightened. "I came to talk, not fight." "Then talk." She followed me into the old dining room. For a moment, I saw the child she had been. She touched the back of a chair when nervous. She still did that. "Grant says the documents were preliminary," she said. "Contractors sometimes submit certifications before work is completed." "Work that remained unfinished 3 years later?" "He used subcontractors." "You signed the tenant affidavit." "I signed dozens of documents." "That is not an explanation." "I trusted my husband." "So did the city." She looked toward the hallway. "Dad, if you keep pushing this, Lily will lose everything." "And what did Evan and Noah lose?" "That is different." "Why?" "You had options." "The motel?" "You always survive." The words landed harder than the door. My daughter had mistaken my ability to endure hardship for permission to give me more. I stood. "This conversation is over." She remained seated. "Grant's bank is reviewing his loans. Investors are panicking. People online are threatening us. Lily heard someone at school call her father a thief. I am sorry Lily is being hurt." "Then stop. Tell Grant to cooperate. You know he cannot admit to crimes he did not commit." "What did you sign, Melissa?" She looked away. "Routine forms." "Did you know tenants never received the notices?" "No." The answer came too fast. I waited. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "Grant said the property manager handled distribution." "And when did you learn that was false?" She stood suddenly. "I should not have come." "Melissa." She walked toward the door. I asked the question before she reached it. "Did Grant know our building would be condemned before the inspectors arrived?" She stopped. Her shoulders moved with one shallow breath. Then she left without answering. Silence can be testimony when a person chooses it carefully. That afternoon, Maya called. The city had recovered an email Grant sent to the building owner 9 days before the emergency inspection. It contained 5 words. "Clear the building before review." Our homelessness had not surprised him. It had been scheduled. The email changed the investigation. Until then, Grant could blame subcontractors, clerks, consultants, or careless project managers. "Clear the building before review" showed that he knew an inspection was coming and wanted tenants gone before anyone could ask what had happened to the grant money. Maya warned me not to celebrate. "One email is a door," she said. "We still have to prove what is behind it." The fraud office subpoenaed Holloway Urban Renewal's accounts. The city suspended Grant from bidding on new work. 2 banks froze unused credit lines while they reviewed whether his loan applications relied on false contracts. Grant's response was to accelerate everything. He fired Owen Price a second time in the newspapers, accusing him of theft. He sued Second Landing for possessing proprietary records. He asked a judge to prevent us from discussing Project 14B publicly. The judge denied the emergency request. Then Grant tried something more personal. At 8 on a Tuesday morning, a sheriff's deputy delivered papers seeking to remove me as Evan and Noah's guardian. Grant and Melissa alleged that I had exposed the boys to unsafe housing, involved them in a public dispute, and placed my obsession with the non-profit above their stability. I read the petition twice. The most painful lies are built around facts. We had lived in a motel. We were living behind a construction site. Evan had seen evidence files. Noah had heard adults discuss fraud. Grant's attorneys described those facts without mentioning who had caused them. Clara found me sitting alone in the unfinished parlor. "What happened?" I handed her the papers. She read the first page and said a word Noah was not allowed to repeat. "They are trying to take the boys. They are asking for temporary custody while the court evaluates the home. Melissa would not let them sleep in her basement. Courts prefer documents to memories. We have documents. So do they." That afternoon, Eleanor Ross, a family law attorney who volunteered with Second Landing, agreed to represent me. She inspected the caretaker apartment, interviewed the boys separately, reviewed school attendance, medical records, my pension, the guardianship order, and the building permits. Then she said, "Their case is weak, but weak cases can still frighten good people into surrendering. I will not surrender them." I know. That is why I said frighten, not defeat. At the temporary custody hearing, Melissa sat beside Grant in a dark suit. She did not look at me. Their lawyer argued that the children needed a conventional home while I pursued an increasingly consuming conflict with Grant. Eleanor placed photographs of Grant's 5-bedroom house on the court screen. Then she displayed a text Melissa had sent me the night we were refused entry. "I am sorry, Dad, but Grant and I agreed that allowing you to stay would reward poor planning." The judge read it twice. Eleanor asked, "When did the petitioners first become concerned about the children's housing?" Their lawyer said, "Immediately after the condemnation." "Did they offer housing?" "No." "Did they pay for a hotel?" "No." "Did they contact child services?" "No." "Did they file this petition before or after Mr. Hayes provided evidence in the municipal fraud investigation?" The lawyer objected. The judge allowed the question. "After," he admitted. The petition was denied. The judge ordered both sides not to involve the children in public statements. He also warned Grant that using family court as leverage in a financial dispute could carry consequences. Outside the courtroom, Melissa finally approached me. I was trying to protect them. No, I said. You were trying to take away the people I am protecting. Grant said the building was dangerous. You were on the porch. You saw where we were going. I did not know it would be a motel. You did not ask. She glanced at reporters gathering near the courthouse entrance. Can we please discuss this privately? We did. You left before answering me. Grant called her name from the steps. She turned immediately. That was the shape of their marriage. He pulled. She moved. The boys remained with me. But something inside Evan had changed. The custody petition convinced him that Grant would not stop until someone forced him. He began attending renovation meetings, taking notes, and asking Maya questions about public records. He did not attempt another login. Instead, he created a timeline from documents we legally possessed. Noah painted a new sign for the front entrance. Open Door House. Clara had planned to keep Agnes Bell's name, but when she saw the sign, she changed the proposal for the board. Agnes left us a building, she said. Walter and the boys gave it a purpose. By early spring, the first floor passed inspection. The kitchen had commercial appliances donated by a hotel renovation. The parlor held mismatched couches that somehow looked intentional. 6 bedrooms were complete. Each door carried one of Noah's hand-painted signs. Our opening date was set for May 1st. 3 weeks before it, the city announced a public hearing into the failed rehabilitation program. Former tenants would testify. Contractors would be questioned. Grant and Melissa received subpoenas. That same afternoon, a black car stopped outside Open Door House. A woman stepped out wearing large sunglasses and carrying a suitcase. It took me several seconds to recognize my daughter. Melissa had always entered rooms as though she had already been welcomed. That day, she stood at the bottom of our steps and waited. Beside her was Lily, 8 years old, wearing a school uniform and holding a pink backpack. A second suitcase sat on the sidewalk. I opened the door. Melissa removed her sunglasses. There was a bruise-colored shadow beneath one eye, not from a blow but from nights without sleep. Grant is gone, she said. Gone where? I do not know. His phone is off. The bank took control of the house this morning. Lily looked at the open doorway but did not move. Melissa swallowed. We need somewhere to stay. The world became very quiet. Not because no one was present. Because every person in the front hall understood what this moment resembled. Clara stood near the office. Evan had stopped halfway down the stairs. Noah appeared behind him. My daughter was on my porch with a child, bags, and nowhere to go. For one dangerous second, I wanted her to feel the door closing. I wanted her to hear the lock. I wanted Evan to see balance restored. Then Lily asked, "Grandpa, can I come inside?" I stepped aside immediately. "Yes." She crossed the threshold and wrapped both arms around me. Melissa remained outside. I held my granddaughter and looked at my daughter over her shoulder. "This is transitional housing," I said. "Residents complete an intake, disclose income and debts, participate in employment planning, and follow the rules." Melissa's face hardened. "I am your daughter." "That is why I am explaining instead of asking Clara to do it." "You would make me apply?" "I would not make Lily wait on a porch while adults discuss pride." Evan watched me. I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to say there was no room. Instead, I said, there is one completed family room. You may use it for 72 hours while the board reviews an emergency placement. Melissa stared at me. No special treatment? Lily gets immediate safety. You get the same dignity and the same responsibility as everyone else. Tears finally reached her face. She nodded. Clara brought the intake forms. That first night, Lily slept in the room Noah had named Blue Sky. Melissa sat at our kitchen table and disclosed everything. Grant had borrowed against the house twice. The second mortgage carried her signature, but she claimed she had signed only the final page. He had stopped paying Lily's school tuition 3 months earlier. Their joint account contained $87. He had transferred company funds to 3 entities Melissa did not recognize. Maya joined us after Melissa agreed to speak without immunity or promises. What did you know about Project 14B? Maya asked. Melissa held a paper cup between both hands. At first, only that Grant had the contract. When did you sign the tenant notification affidavit? He brought a stack of closing documents home. He said the city needed spousal verification because one subsidiary was jointly held. Did you read it? No. When did you discover the notices were false? Melissa looked at me. The day Dad called about the cracks. I asked Grant why tenants were still complaining if the work was complete. He said the landlord had diverted some of the money. Did you report that? No. Why? He said the company would collapse and everyone would lose their jobs. Maya asked, did you later learn Grant had diverted the money? Yes. When? 6 months ago. What did you do? Nothing. The word shook as it left her. She explained that she had found transfers to Baytree Consulting, a shell company controlled by Grant's college friend. When she confronted him, he admitted moving money but said it was temporary. He warned that if she exposed him, he would say she had approved every filing. He showed me the affidavit with my signature, she said. He said I was already part of it. You were, Maya replied. Melissa closed her eyes. That was the first time anyone had said it without allowing fear to excuse her. Did Grant know the building would be condemned? Maya asked. Yes. How? He paid an inspector for advance notice. My hands tightened beneath the table. When did you know? I asked. The night before. The room seemed to tilt. You knew before we came to your house? Yes. And you still said there was no room. Grant said investigators might question everyone connected to the tenants. He said if you stayed with us, they could claim we were coordinating stories. So you left 2 children outside to protect a story. She began crying. I was afraid. Noah was 7. I know. Evan had just lost his home. I know. You knew we were not careless. You knew the condemnation was coming. You knew Grant's company was involved. I know. Her repeated answer did not repair anything. But it stopped the lie. Maya continued. Where is Grant now? Melissa reached into her bag and removed a tablet. He left this. I know the password. Evan moved closer. I held up a hand. This goes to investigators, not us. Melissa nodded and slid it across the table. The tablet contained what the boxes did not. Private messages. Bank records. Draft contracts. Photographs of cash payments to an inspector. A spreadsheet listing Project 14B expenses under 2 headings, documented and actual. The documented cost of structural reinforcement was $480,000. The actual cost was $31,000. Another folder contained plans to purchase our condemned building after foreclosure, demolish it, and construct luxury apartments. Grant had not merely stolen repair funds. He had allowed the property to become dangerous, arranged advance warning of the inspection, cleared the tenants, and positioned a partner to acquire the site at a reduced price. Our displacement was not collateral damage. It was part of the business model. Melissa also found a message sent the evening we stood on her porch. Grant had written to his partner. Walter came here. Sent him away. He noticed the construction connection. Move demolition before he starts asking questions. Evan read that message only after Maya approved its release to our attorney. He sat on the front steps for an hour. I joined him after sunset. You let her stay, he said. I let Lily in. You let Aunt Melissa stay too. For now. She knew. Yes. She knew before we knocked. Yes. How can you look at her? Not easily. If you forgive her, she gets away with it. Forgiveness is not a verdict. What does that mean? It means I can decide not to poison myself while the court still decides what she owes. He pulled at a loose thread on his sleeve. I wanted you to shut the door. I know. Part of me still does. Part of me does too. That surprised him. I continued. But Lily was standing where Noah stood. If I punish a child to teach an adult, then the door changed me more than I changed it. Evan looked through the front window. Inside, Melissa was helping Noah with a puzzle. She was trying too hard. Noah was allowing it because he missed the aunt he thought he had. What happens to her? Evan asked. She tells the truth at the hearing. And if she does not? Then she cannot stay here. The public hearing began 6 days later. The hearing filled the city council chamber beyond capacity. Former tenants sat in rows beside housing advocates, reporters, construction workers, and families who had spent the winter in temporary rooms because Project 14B had failed. Grant arrived 10 minutes late with 2 attorneys. He looked thinner, but not defeated. People like Grant often mistake delay for survival. Melissa sat beside Maya rather than beside him. When Grant saw her, he understood. The first witnesses were engineers. They described missing supports, overloaded wiring, false photographs, and invoices for work that had never occurred. Owen Price explained how one repaired apartment had been photographed from multiple angles to create the appearance of progress. Tasha Reed showed the ceiling that collapsed above her daughter's bed. Curtis Bell held up the form bearing a signature his damaged hand could not produce. Then Melissa was called. She walked to the table alone. Grant's attorney objected to questions about their marriage. The hearing officer limited the testimony to city filings and company conduct. Melissa admitted signing the false tenant affidavit without reading it. She admitted learning later that notices had not been delivered. She admitted remaining silent after discovering suspicious transfers. Then Maya displayed Grant's message from the night we came to his home. Walter came here. Sent him away. He noticed the construction connection. The chamber became completely still. Grant leaned toward his attorney. Melissa looked at me. "I knew the inspection was coming," she said. "I knew my father and the boys had been displaced by a project connected to my husband's company. I refused them shelter because Grant told me protecting him protected our family." Her voice broke. "It did not protect my family. It showed me what I had allowed myself to become." Grant stood. "This is absurd." She had full access to the company. She signed the forms. Melissa turned toward him. "Yes," she said. "I did." He had expected denial. Her acceptance frightened him more. When my turn came, I carried no speech. I described the porch. I described Noah asking whether he had done something bad. I described the motel, the cracked wiring, and the false form carrying my name. Then I looked at the former tenants. "This is not a story about my daughter refusing me a bedroom," I said. "That hurt, but hurt is not why we are here. We are here because people with money decided families in an old building would be easier to move than dangerous wiring. They counted on tenants being too tired, too poor, or too embarrassed to compare papers." I pointed toward the Project 14B records. A building does not fail in one dramatic moment. It fails one ignored crack, one false signature, and one person saying it is not my responsibility at a time. Grant did not look at me. The hearing referred its findings to state and federal prosecutors. Months followed. Grant eventually pleaded guilty to fraud, bribery, and reckless conduct connected to the false repairs. Other contractors and the inspector who warned him were charged separately. Melissa pleaded guilty to making a false statement in a municipal filing. She received probation, community service, and an order to cooperate in recovering funds. Some people said she had escaped too easily. Others said she had suffered enough. Neither group had to rebuild a relationship with her. That work belonged to us. Melissa remained at Open Door House for 11 weeks. She followed the rules. She found a job managing accounts for a small medical clinic, attended counseling, and saved for an apartment. No one gave her the best room. No one excused missed chores. When Lily was sick, Clara helped because Lily was a child, not because Melissa was special. Before moving out, Melissa stood with me on the front porch. "I keep thinking about that night," she said. "So do I. I want to say I was not myself." "You were yourself. That is why it matters." She nodded through tears. "Do you think you will ever trust me again?" "Not the way I did before." Her face fell. I continued. "Before, I trusted you because you were my daughter. If trust comes back, it will be because of what you do." "That sounds fair." "It is not supposed to sound kind." "No," she said. "It sounds honest." Open Door House welcomed its first 3 families that spring. One grandmother had been sleeping in a car with twin granddaughters. Another grandfather had taken custody of a teenage boy after his son entered treatment. The third resident was a 61-year-old woman raising a toddler and working night shifts at a bakery. Noah showed every child the room signs. Evan managed the supply inventory and taught new residents how to submit maintenance requests. I remained in the caretaker apartment, though the board offered me a larger room. I liked being near the boiler. A year later, Second Landing opened another house across town. At the ceremony, Evan stood behind a microphone. He was 14 and still serious, but anger no longer entered every room before him. "A home is not the place where people share your last name," he said. "It is the place where no child has to prove they deserve a room." Melissa stood near the back with Lily. She did not ask to stand with us. Afterward, Noah ran to her, and she hugged him. Evan took longer. Then he walked over and said hello. That was all. It was also more than nothing. People sometimes ask whether closing the door on Melissa would have felt better. For 1 minute, perhaps. But revenge would have given me only the porch. Building gave us 12 rooms, then 24. Grant laughed when I promised my grandsons they would never beg for space again. He thought I meant I would somehow become rich enough to own a large house. I meant something simpler. I meant they would grow up knowing that need is not shameful, safety is not a favor, and a closed door is not proof that the world has no place for you. The door my daughter closed did not disappear. I still remember its sound. But every morning, I unlock open door house before sunrise. Soon, I hear pipes warming, floorboards moving, children waking, and families beginning again. Then I turn the sign toward the street. Room available. And I leave the door open.